And she told me basically that you just go and you give him a massage for about an hour and for $200. And obviously that sounds a little too good to be true.
Accused sexual predator Jeffrey Epstein has been dead for 5 years, but we are still learning more information about his life and alleged crimes, including from newly released evidence this week out of Florida that really may send chills down your back. We've been digging through these materials and want to discuss more shocking new details. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law&Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. We first told you about this new release of evidence earlier this week in the Jeffrey Epstein story, the deceased financier. That Judge Luis Delgado, who released these materials, called Jeffrey Epstein, quote, the most infamous pedophile in American history, and said that the evidence contained in the videos, audio recordings, and documents was sickening. And it really is. This, by the way, was pursuant to a bill signed by Florida Governor Ron DeSantis that authorized release of grand jury materials. And that's what this is. These are materials that center around when the Palm Beach Police Department had opened up an investigation into Jeffrey Epstein back in 2005 and what was presented to a grand jury in 2006. Now, we recall that the parents of a 14-year-old girl came forward accusing the millionaire financier of paying her to give him a massage. That's how all this started. The police, they found out that Epstein had allegedly set up a system to recruit girls to provide him massages and sometimes engage in sexual activity. These girls would not only be paid for services they provided, but they were also seemingly paid to bring more girls to Jeffrey Epstein. In fact, at one point, he allegedly told one victim, the younger, the better. So what happened? Well, the case was brought to the state attorney's office. A grand jury was impaneled where the juries heard all sorts of testimony from detectives and two of the alleged victims. And the grand jury ended up indicting Epstein in 2006 on felony solicitation of prostitution. That's it. And there have been a lot of arguments about this, right? Why didn't prosecutors pursue more aggressive charges? Why was this the only one? And of course, we know how this went, right? The Palm Beach Police Department chief and lead detective, they were particularly troubled by this prosecution, so they refer the matter to the FBI. The FBI brings this to the assistant U.S. attorney, and in the end, in 2008, Jeffrey Epstein and prosecutors work out a deal where he pleads guilty to state charges of solicitation of prostitution and procurement of minors. And as a result, he's sentenced to just 18 months in prison, only serves 13, by the way, and he spends most of the time in a work release program where he can leave the jail to work at his office and then go back to jail at night. Yes, he has to also register as a sex offender, but the bottom line, he avoids federal charges. He avoids more serious state charges. This is the whole sweetheart deal that you've heard about a lot here on Sidebar and in the media. And the argument is, if he were hit with more severe charges back in the day, he could have been stopped. He could have been stopped, as the allegations have explained, from continuing to hurt girls. And then we know in 2019, he's arrested on New York federal sex trafficking charges, and he winds up dead in his jail cell before going to trial. Authorities concluding that he took his own life. And as for his accomplice, girlfriend, madam, whatever you want to call her, Ghislaine Maxwell, she helped Epstein procure young girls to assault, and she was found guilty of sex trafficking, and she was sentenced to 20 years in prison. Hey everybody, I want to take a minute to thank Morgan & Morgan for sponsoring today's Law&Crime YouTube takeover. If you've seen our videos, you know Morgan & Morgan is a proud sponsor of Law&Crime and that our content proves the world isn't always the safest place. And when you're hurt, that can be very confusing. It can be scary. You don't really know where to turn. But Morgan & Morgan, America's largest injury law firm, can help. They're the largest injury law firm because they win a lot. Verdicts and settlements in the multi-millions. They also make it super easy for their clients because uploading documents, signing contracts, starting your claim can all be done on your smartphone. Also, there's zero upfront fee. You only pay them if you win. So if you've ever been injured in an accident, you can check out Morgan & Morgan. You can start a claim in 8 clicks or less without even having to leave your couch. To start your claim, visit forthepeople.com/YouTube takeover. Now, in our previous sidebar, we got into some of these materials that were released this past week, and we had an in-depth conversation about this with the current Palm Beach County State Attorney, Dave Arenberg. But now we are going to cover 5 horrific details from this release. And remember, The release of these documents happened after years of litigation from the Palm Beach Post and other media outlets who wanted to know what happened. They wanted to know what happened regarding these grand jury proceedings, as well as the investigation leading up to it. Now, one of the biggest parts of the evidence release has been videos. And there's footage of Palm Beach law enforcement serving a search warrant at Epstein's home while Epstein was away. The videographer walks through the house, giving us a sense of the layout, as well as some of the more disturbing decorating choices, that's one way of putting it, like artwork and photos of young nude girls. Now, I will tell you, unfortunately, some of the audio clips that were part of this release, they're just unusable. You essentially can't understand anything that's being made out, so we won't play those for you. But what we will start talking about are redacted interviews with victims who came down to the police department to speak with detectives.
First of all, again, I appreciate you coming down to talk to me. You're not in any trouble whatsoever.
Okay.
I just want to put that out there right now.
Okay.
You're not in any trouble whatsoever. The reason why I wanted to talk to you is I am conducting an ongoing investigation for quite some time now on a subject by the name of Jeffrey Epstein.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And through my investigation, I do know that you have some knowledge and you've been at the house, and that's what I want to talk to you about.
Okay.
And again, I'm saying you're not in any trouble. Okay? You're not a suspect. You're a witness, possibly a victim, but I do want to talk to you. Okay? All right. Before we start, can you raise your right hand for me?
Yeah.
You solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Okay. How did you meet Mr. Epstein?
Through a friend.
Through a friend.
Mm-hmm.
What school were you going to when you...
I wasn't in school when I met him. I had already graduated.
You already graduated?
Yes.
Okay. How old are you now?
19.
19. How long ago did you meet him?
About a year, I'd say, maybe a little over a year. Right around a year.
Okay. Again, I've talked to a lot of girls,
Mm-hmm.
30, almost 40 girls so far. And so I know pretty much when he takes you to the house what transpires, okay? I know it might be a little embarrassing or whatever, but don't be. Like I said, I've talked to many people already and are pretty much familiar as to what happened in the house, okay? Walk me through this when you went to his house for the first time.
Okay. She took me over to the house. She waited downstairs. I just went up, gave him a massage, and that was it. I mean...
Okay. She approached you to
yeah,
work?
she's like, oh, do you need to make any extra money? I'm like, yeah. She's like, okay, I can give you, like $200. It's this older guy in Palm Beach. He gets a lot of massages from girls. That was really... That's all she told me. That's what I mean...
Okay. Are you a licensed therapist or masseuse therapist?
No, I'm not licensed, no.
No, but you know how to give massages? Okay. Is this something that you did on the side, or is this...
No, just, like, for him. That was really it.
All right.
You know what else is very disturbing from these interviews, aside from the fact that you hear how young they are even when they're speaking, was how their stories were all consistent, how their stories seemed to match up. Here's part of an interview with another victim.
She told me about this guy I was short on rent 1 month, and she told me that all I had to do was give him a massage and he would give me $200. And that's pretty much it. And I thought about it. I was like, I really need the money. I've asked my parents, they can't give me the money. I asked everyone I knew, and I went there with her. I gave him a massage, and it was a weird situation.
And the audio here isn't as clear, but listen to what another victim told detectives.
A friend of mine told me about Jeffrey. She said she was helping him find girls.
And who was this friend?
We're not friends anymore, though, so you can't mention my name to her.
Okay.
And she told me basically that you would go and you would give him a massage for about an hour and for $200. And obviously that sounds a little too good to be true, and as I found out, it wasn't quite what she said. He has the girls take off their clothes and give him a massage, and he likes watching them, I guess.
Investigators discovered that Jeffrey Epstein and his assistants and Ghislaine Maxwell, they would coordinate massage times with these girls, often multiple massages a day. And then those girls would be asked to recruit friends, especially if they attended local high schools. Think about that for a second. You know, one victim told police that she always gave other girls a heads up about what would be happening inside the mansion because she says the acquaintance who brought her for the first time wasn't completely truthful about Epstein's alleged expectations.
And I would always tell them, what the situation was. Because I wasn't told the whole, at first I was not told the whole situation.
What did he tell you would have to do?
He told me I would just take my shirt off and give him a massage and that would be it.
Topless or
yeah,
with the bra?
Topless.
Okay.
So that was it.
Okay. Was there ever a time that you ever told him, hey, I'm not comfortable with that?
The first time he asked me if I would take my jeans off and I told him I wasn't comfortable with that.
Now let's talk about the grand jury proceedings back in 2006. This again was to decide whether to indict Jeffrey Epstein for sex crimes. And the prosecutor had questioned these victims on the stand, wanting details about what the girls were wearing when they went to the home. So this is part of the transcript, and it reads, quote, question, how were you met when you first went to dressed when you first went to his house? Answer, I was wearing a regular t-shirt, my Hollister shirt, and just some jeans. Okay, what kind of underwear did you have on? A thong. And the bra? What type of bra? It was a bra. Okay, nothing special? Uh-huh. Were you comfortable getting down to your bra and underwear? Uh-huh. I was kind of hesitant. I was sitting in the room until Jeffrey came in, thinking to myself, well, what's going on? I don't know. I was kind of hesitant. But then I just didn't care because I wanted $200 because I wanted to spend it, so I just didn't care. Or how about this particularly creepy exchange with a witness who says she was 17 years old when she had this incident with Jeffrey Epstein? Quote, when you were massaging him, did he say anything to you or make any comments? The response was, polite conversation. Okay, what kind of things was he asking you? Just about school and what I was going to do when I got older. He knew you were in school? Yes. Not to mention the fact that she testified also that when she turned 18, she claims Epstein gave her bras and panties. She also testified how he had intercourse with her before she turned 18. So we're talking about an allegation of assault. Now, as we covered in the previous sidebar, there were some very troubling questions that were posed by the prosecutor and even the jurors to these witnesses about the choices that they made and whether they committed a crime. Again, you can check out our previous sidebar to see all about that. But Jeffrey Epstein, going back to him, he has long been accused of using his appearance of wealth, like this huge fancy mansion, his connection to famous celebrities, photos of whom were sometimes displayed on the walls, and his seemingly never-ending supply of cash to get what he wanted. And detectives warned the alleged victims that Epstein's lawyer might end up contacting them as this criminal investigation moved forward.
Because he is aware of the investigation. I did a search warrant in the house.
Right.
Were you aware that he had cameras in the house?
Yes. Wasn't sure where. I knew he had some on the outside of the house. I wasn't sure where the other cameras were.
Okay. But he is aware of the investigation. That's what I'm saying. Don't be surprised if someone from his, like a defense attorney or a private investigator tries to talk to you.
Okay.
Again, there's this theme of power, control, influence in the Jeffrey Epstein saga. We see a lot of that. Now, something else that's been getting a lot of attention within the hundreds of pages of documents are photocopies of Jeffrey Epstein's message books. Now, remember, this is the early 2000s, so yes, people had cell phones, but if someone called the landline at the Epstein mansion in Palm Beach, an employee would likely take down the message. So some of the messages are pretty innocuous. For example, there's a message taken down in April of 2004 from Epstein's brother Mark that simply says, "Call me in New York." Longtime friend and fellow millionaire Les Wexner, the owner of Victoria's Secret, also often appears in the message book. There is a note that says, "Call me." Wexner has been called out in recent years for his connection to Jeffrey Epstein, who he gave control of basically all of his assets at one point. Wexner has said he knew nothing of Epstein's alleged indiscretions and crimes or alleged crimes. It says that he himself was taken advantage of by the financier. Then we have famed attorney Alan Dershowitz, who helped secure Epstein's sweetheart deal that I mentioned before, left a message that just says new info. There are other famous names that pop up as well, like magician David Copperfield. Victims who have filed lawsuits against Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell have named David Copperfield as being present at these get-togethers at Epstein's homes. He's also allegedly asked one of the victims if she knew about getting money for bringing Epstein new girls. He also allegedly performed magic for Epstein's guests because in another message, the note-taker wrote, "Magic David called." And then there are others who have more direct connections to Epstein's supposed worldwide sex trafficking ring. They show up multiple times in Epstein's call logs. For example, we have French model scout Jean-Luc Brunel, who's been accused of acting as a pimp for Jeffrey Epstein, procuring young girls for him to sexually assault. In this phone message, Brunel says, "I need a big favor. I hope you will do it." Brunel, by the way, was kicked out of a modeling agency following a report of decades-long abuse against young women and girls. But Jeffrey Epstein and Brunel started a new agency, and when Epstein died in 2019, French authorities opened an inquiry into Brunel, and he tried to flee, but he was arrested at the airport, and he was found dead at a prison in Paris on February 19th, 2022, as he was being investigated for rape and trafficking of minors. Now, knowing that, Brunel's other messages seem a lot more sinister. For example, there's this note that reads, "He just did a good one, 18 years. She spoke to me and said, 'I love Jeffrey.'" Investigators also believe that Epstein and Brunel may have spoken sometimes in code. There's this message that reads, quote, "He is a teacher for you to teach you Russian. She is 2 times 8 years old," so by the way, that's 16. "Not blonde, lessons are free, and you can have first today. If yes, call." Pretty disturbing if we think this is what it seems to be. Alleged victims or recruiters would also leave messages. This one from someone named Tatum reads, "Has girl for tonight." And this one is specifically addressed to Ghislaine Maxwell, or Sarah, believed to be one of Epstein's assistants, and it's from Emmy. Quote, "She doesn't know at what time she must come this night for the massage." Now, in this release of materials, there are also more investigative reports that detail what happened when girls weren't, let's say, showing Epstein the appreciation that he expected. There's this document that reads, quote, "She stated on the last time she went to provide a massage, she was notified by Sarah to come to the house and work. She stated she was now dating her current boyfriend and did not feel comfortable going. She recalled it was approximately January 2005. She said she went, already thinking that this would be the last time. She went upstairs and went into the master bedroom. She met with Epstein, who was wearing only a towel as he entered the room to lie on the table. She stated Epstein caught her looking at the clock on several occasions. Epstein asked her if she was in a hurry. She stated her boyfriend was in the car waiting for her. She further stated that Epstein got upset and she wasn't enjoying the massage. She told him that she didn't want to continue and would not be back. Epstein told her to leave as she was ruining his massage. I asked her if she had any contact with Epstein's organization. She stated she received $200 from the Western Union as a Christmas gift. She advised she had no formal training in providing any massages. She also stated she was 16 years old when she first went to Epstein's house. So despite what seems like arguably pretty solid evidence of sexual assault of minors and more, the grand jury again indicted Epstein just on solicitation. And as I mentioned, that didn't sit right with some of the detectives on the case, police. In fact, the chief of police of Palm Beach County at the time, Michael Reeder, sent a letter to a victim's father in 2005, and it reads, quote, "Your daughter was the victim of a crime which has been investigated by the Palm Beach Police Department and subsequently referred for prosecution to the Palm Beach State Attorney's Office. You may be aware that Jeffrey Epstein was indicted on charges of solicitation of prostitution by a state of Florida grand jury last week and turned himself in at the Palm Beach County Jail on July 23, 2006. While I do not speak for them, It is my understanding that is the full context in which the Palm Beach County State Attorney's Office intends to address the charges that involve the crime in which your daughter was victim. The chief says later in the letter, quote, I do not feel that justice has been sufficiently served by the indictment that has been issued. Therefore, please know that this matter has been referred to the Federal Bureau of Investigation to determine if violations of federal law have occurred. And we talked about what happened next. We're going to continue to follow the fallout from this release. And of course, if any more information should come out, we will do our best to cover it for you here on Sidebar. In the meantime, that's all we have for you right now. Thank you so much for joining us. And as always, please subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Jesse Weber. I'll speak to you next time.